Welcome back to the channel, guys. If you've been following my channel for a while, a couple of years ago I reviewed the original Tesla Model Y, which at the time was my favourite car that I reviewed on the channel. I was absolutely loving it. I did a two-part review. I'll leave a link to that at the end of this one. And yeah, I had a lot of positive things to say about it, and Tesla's reputation in the UK was definitely in the ascendancy. There was a lot of positive buzz about it. I'm not going to say my videos quite broke the internet, but there were definitely more popular ones on my channel, and I think there was just a lot of buzz about that car, and so a lot of people were interested in it. Well, quite a lot's changed in the last couple of years for Tesla. First of all, there's a lot more negative press about them. I won't go into that. Been there, done that. It didn't go too well, if I'm honest. But anyway, I also own a Tesla. Well, I rent one, sort of. I've got a PCP on a Model 3. They've since brought out the Highland version of that. And then very recently, the Tesla Model Y refresh, which is codenamed the Juniper. And that's what I'm driving today. But what hasn't changed is my excitement about getting to review one of these, because I still think Tesla are just an exciting brand, and they do things so differently to a lot of other car makers, and EVs especially, that I am just so excited to get to have a shot of this thing. When my mate told me he'd bought one, I was like, boom, sign me up to review that bad boy. So I'm hoping to tell you everything I can about this car, particularly talk about some of the things that I think have changed or got better or worse since the older model. So if that sounds good, don't forget to like and subscribe. Helps me out massively with the algorithm. Otherwise, buckle up and let's get into it. So first things first, the suspension in the Model Y has always been quite firm. I'm pleased to report it's definitely a little bit less fidgety in this refreshed version. This one I'm driving though is in fact the base model, as opposed to the long range dual motor which I reviewed before, which had 20-inch rims on it. So this one's got 19s, so that does make a difference, but I generally find the suspension, I'm going at 30 miles an hour roughly here, and it's quite compliant actually. It's, you know, there's a few fidgets here and there, but I would say that for how I like suspension to go, as in I don't want it to be too soft that I'm falling about the place in the bends and my kids are barfing on the back seats. I like it to be firmish, and that's exactly what this is. And that's at low speeds, you know. When you're going higher speeds, not an issue at all. It just floats over bumps just absolutely fine. Obviously the roads in this country are terrible, and that will take its toll on the suspension components. Watch the video I just put out about my Model 3 and some issues with that for details. But yeah, as long as you've got one under warranty, you don't have to worry about that. And this is definitely a brand new car, so the owner is definitely not going to have to think about that. But suspension components definitely do take a bit of a battering with these heavy EVs, and it's not really a strong point of Tesla's, it turns out. So I'm going the national speed limit, and yep, the suspension here is really good. It's just floating over the bumps brilliantly. There's no problems whatsoever. So that side of things, excellent. And it's just such a good balance of handling and ride comfort, I think. Rear wheel drive car is always good to corner with compared to front wheel drive, but this thing is so flat in the bends. It's absolutely glorious. It really does just handle so well for such a heavy car. I mean, the center of gravity is pretty low with the batteries, but it is just such a good car to corner with. I wouldn't want to push it too hard given its rear wheel drive, and it'll be interesting to see what it's like in winter, but this thing is absolutely lovely in the corners. The steering, even before you stiffen it up, which you've the option to do, is just so good. It's so responsive, it's sharp as a tack. I absolutely love Tesla steering. Every one I've been in has been the same. It was amazing in the original Model Y, and it still is. So this standard rear wheel drive single motor is technically the slowest car in the range, but it'll still go 0 to 60 in 5.6 seconds. Strangely enough, the long range rear wheel drive does it in 5.4, and that's weird because that one's got bigger batteries, so surely that would be slightly heavier. So I'm not exactly sure how that works, but this one's the slowest one, and it's no slouch. Being rear wheel drive, there are limitations in terms of grip. You put your foot down in dodgy conditions, you're gonna probably slip a little bit, but if you put your foot down at any point, it just goes and goes and goes. This thing has all the performance you could ever need. Overtaking people's an absolute joke, as long as they're not in a faster Tesla. But it really is just such a fast car, and yeah, like I say, compared to the performance model of this car, it's way slow. So in this standard range rear wheel drive, it's supposed to do 0 to 60 in 5.6 seconds, but does it? Ooh, 5.25. How about that? It is maybe slightly downhill, but I didn't get any wheel slip at all there. So that is blooming quick. Now obviously if you're worried about rear wheel drive, instant torque, bad conditions, depending on where you live, then you can get the long range dual motor all wheel drive one, which is technically what my Model 3 is. Sorry to keep harping on about that. But yeah, it's going to give you that extra confidence in slippy conditions. You can also get the performance model, which is very fast, but also all wheel drive. So there are different options there, but the price obviously starts to go up quite quickly when you pick them. So in terms of the fundamental things that have improved with this car and Teslas in general, I've got to say the refinement has to be up there. I'm doing it 70 odd miles an hour now, and it's barely got any louder in here than it was when I was going 30. It's really good, really good. So yeah, for cruising long distances, chatting to your passengers, not a problem at all. This is really good. This is like Audi levels of refinement. Well impressed. Generally speaking, the visibility in this thing is excellent, except for out the back window. It's pretty narrow, but the style of the car, that was always the case. But it is a very limited back window to look out of. But you've got decent sized wing mirrors and cameras all over the shop. One thing I really love is, especially coming out my mate's driveway, which has got a really blind sort of view to the sides before you move on the road, you can press the button on the camera and actually kind of see almost like a little peek around the corners, which is a really awesome feature. It's not quite as good as having a mirror at the other side of the road that you can look at, but it's definitely bridging that gap. So that is a really awesome little feature. Basically just being able to see that meter further forward than you can physically see with your own eyes because the camera's near the front of the car picking up that view. That is ace. Something I also love is the how the rear view mirror is frameless, which is always something I expect to see in a car now, but it's designed to almost just fit perfectly the view of that slightly compressed back window. You know, it's quite a small rear view mirror, but it doesn't need to be bigger than that because it still basically mirrors the shape of that back rear view. And so yeah, it's another little subtle clever thing that I think Tesla copped onto, and yeah, it really works. Something that is going to take a bit of getting used to is going to be the lack of gear selector. So there used to be an indicator stalk in the old one. Now it is a swipey with your finger on the touchscreen to go forward and back and park. And that is not ideal, I don't think. I think a lot of people might find that annoying. They are bringing in an auto gear change feature, which is going to actually kind of figure out, if you're doing like a 3-point turn, it's going to kind of automatically figure out that you're obviously going from reverse to drive, etc. But if you're not using that, then yeah, you're going to find, and I definitely found it earlier when I was doing a quick 3-point turn, just flicking like this, pretty clunky and just lacking massively in feel. It's just not something I want to have to think about. That for me is minimalism gone too far. Just leave the gear stick in there, please, that I can just quickly do a bit of that. You know, I don't know why you would get rid of that. Yeah, that's annoying. I mean, in the Model 3, you're going to have that problem as well, but at least with the Model Y Juniper, unlike the Highland, you have a stalk for your indicators, which that is also going in the Model 3 Highland. Now, I can't really remember what the indicator stalks were like in the older Model Y, but I certainly can tell you that compared to the older Model 3 that I drive, the ones in this Juniper are better. So I think they've made a quality improvement on this. It just feels a bit more easy to press and a bit less clunky, and it's just a slightly more subtle press you need to do to get it to actually function. So I think they've done something there that just makes these a little bit smoother to use. So something I've read that the new Tesla Model 3 Highland and the Juniper both have upgraded seats that now have ventilation in them, and people are saying that they're better. Obviously, if they've got ventilation, that makes them superior from that perspective. Where I live, not really caring about that, to be honest. There's not very many days where I'm like, oh my god, I can barely touch a seat, my arse is burning, you know, but it's still cool that it's got that. In other markets, that'll be a really, really useful thing to have. Do I think the overall comfort of these seats is better than the previous gen? No, I don't. I think they're just as good. They're not better or worse. They are very soft, very comfortable. They hug you in probably a bit better than the older ones. So you could say, if you were being like, you know, point by point, they are technically superior, but when it comes to the key thing for me, which is how comfy they are, they're just about the same as the old ones, and that is not a bad thing. The seats in all Teslas I've been in have been absolutely amazing. The only car that has ever trumped it, in my opinion, is a Volvo seats, Other than that, Tesla leads the way for me compared to any other German product, for example. Absolutely love their seats, and these are great. One thing I'm a big fan of with regards to seats in Teslas, and this is the same with all of them, is the headrests. I just find them a bit pointless. You know, there's no real, like, you can't move it forward and support your neck or anything like that. It's just like, and it's quite hard and it's not very wide, so you can slip off it. I don't really know why they've done that with the headrest in Teslas, because they are pretty much useless. Yeah, I mean, you can technically put your head back, but I just don't find the headrests in any way something I'm like, oh yeah, pillowy soft, I want to stick my head against that. You know, they could definitely do a better job with their headrests, but minor point. Something that's important to me is just being able to put my elbows down comfortably when I'm driving and hold the bottom of the wheel. Obviously, you can use your autopilot and not hold the wheel at all, but I like to just, yeah, I like to drive the car, thanks. And yeah, your elbow points are so soft on both sides, you can really just leave them there, and it's perfect for that. So compared to a lot of other cars out there, it's one of the best. I say one of the best, but Audi still tops it in terms of the ratcheting armrest that you can put up at different angles. I love that, and so yeah, they definitely get the most props for that. But overall, I do think for long journeys you can get super comfy, and the driving position's excellent. The steering wheel feels nice and central, unlike in a lot of German cars. So all of that side of things is great. Don't know if I'm imagining it, but the steering wheel feels slightly thicker in this than it does in my Model 3. Again, I can't really remember comparatively what the old Model Y's one was like, but this one feels ever so slightly chunkier. It's similar otherwise in terms of feel. It's quite firm, maybe ever so slightly firmer than in my Model 3, but then again, wear maybe does that as well. But it does feel a little bit thicker. Not a problem. I like a chunky-ish steering wheel. Definitely think BMW leads the way when it comes to the quality of steering wheels in terms of feel, but this is still a pretty good steering wheel. Let's just hope it doesn't start to warp too early in its life, and if it does, well, you could under warranty get a replacement steering wheel. So if you start to notice some warping before you're out of warranty, jump on that, because that's exactly what I did, and I got a free steering wheel. Based on the time of year, it's a shame I can't really drive this in proper pitch black, because it's barely getting dark at all at the moment, but I would love to see what the Matrix LED headlights are like. My guess is they're just as good as they are in my Model 3, never miss a beat, but I would also love to see this ambient light bar around the car. It goes right around the cabin, and it just looks absolutely brilliant. Even in daylight, you know, I've got it on this blue color right now, this like neon blue, looks amazing, but in the dark, I think that will take the whole interior of this car to another level compared to the older model, and I just think ambient lighting is ace. Another little subtle Teslaism that I love is when you're parked up and you want to see what direction your wheels are pointing when you're sitting in the car. So say your wife's been driving or something and she's parked it and the wheels are off at a funny angle, and then you get in and you go, I don't actually know where the wheel lock is, without getting out of the car again. You can look at your screen and it will actually show you the position of your wheels. I just think that's such a cool little thing. It was actually quite useful when I first got in this car, you know. Tesla just do little things like that I just think other car makers just don't think of. Something I was hoping to try out, because the weather's a bit mixed today, is the automatic wipers. Unfortunately, it's been pretty dry for the time I've been driving the car, so I haven't really got to give it a proper test, but they're camera based in how they sense rain, and in my Model 3 and in other Teslas reported, they're absolutely horrific. So let's hope they've improved that a little bit, but I would doubt it. Unfortunately though, the sensitivity of some of the assistance systems isn't any different than in my Model 3, which I've done a video about, specifically griping about those. So if there's overgrown grass at the side of a country road and there's a blade of grass sticking out, it's going to pick that up and whine at you like a blooming smoke alarm as well. So yeah, you can switch some of that stuff off, but something that I have noticed which has changed is you cannot switch off on the move now. You've got to do that stationary. That is really, really, really annoying. So this standard rear-wheel drive will officially do 311 miles on a single charge, which is quite a lot of range really, but in the real world you're probably looking at 260, 270, and that is basically all you really need, isn't it? I mean, you've got access to the Tesla superchargers and they are amazing, so you've got a better infrastructure for charging on the move than any other EV, but yeah, if you go for the long range, you're going to get even more range, funnily enough. And do you really need more range than this? I think for me, the key reason why I would pick the longer range ones over this one would simply be either because I wanted more performance or I wanted more grip. So this car is fundamentally a refresh. So it is mostly cosmetic and subtle changes that they've made here. They have increased the drag coefficient by a tiny percentage, and therefore theoretically that should mean that your battery range could be even better. I'm struggling to find fault in this car from a driving perspective. You know, it's either as good as it was before or it's got better in a couple of key areas. So yeah, they've absolutely nailed it here, and I'm glad they haven't tweaked too much, but it's just a more refined product on the road. So maybe we should pull over and talk about it off the road. Now, of all the talents that the original Model Y had, I don't think styling was top of the pile. In my opinion, it was quite a bubbly looking car. I think they've really moved things on with this Juniper. It looks a lot sharper, better edges on it, but the main differences are the light bar on the front that goes right across and the one in the back, which I think particularly looks amazing at night if you're behind this thing. And the spoiler's really pronounced, it looks really good. Tesla writing instead of the badge, better diffuser. Overall, I think they've really moved things on a lot, but let me know what you think in the comments. So when I first reviewed the Model Y, one of the things I was most wowed by was the boot capacity. It was just blowing me away. And it's no different in this car. But before we get to that, FYI, exposed camera here, that'll need cleaned a lot, otherwise you won't be able to see bugger all over that. That opens at a good speed. 854 litres with the seats up to the window line, and you do have a parcel shelf you can put in so you get some privacy, and 2,138 litres with the seats down, so you could go camping in this thing. It's absolutely bonkers how much space there is in this car. You've also got these massive cubbies down the side which you could fit really useful things in. You get actual big bags of shopping in there so they won't rattle about. So the fact there's very few tethering points doesn't really matter to me that much. You can also electrically put the seats down and back up again, and it's 40-20-40 split folding. And then you've got this massive cubby underneath here. I mean, that is just ginormous. My dog is a big dog and he could just go in there, you know? Absolutely mental. So this is a really, really practical car. It's astonishing how big this boot is. And with this, you know, sloped line as well, you think this isn't going to be that big, but my God, it's a beast. So just like the pre-facelift, the back seats of this car are astonishingly good as well. I think I could actually get my Retriever sitting down there pretty comfortably. There's so much space for your legs and for 3 sets of legs. And yeah, totally flat floor, of course. And even your middle passenger's got plenty of space. Not as good a seat as the outer two, but their legs are going to be absolutely great. I can get my legs almost right under that front seat. It's fantastic. Headroom could be better because it does swoop back the way and down. So I think if you're over 6 feet, that might be a slight issue, but the seats are super comfy, just like the front. Elbow points on the door, perfect position to rest your arm. And then the center one, that's super soft. And you've got cup holders in the middle with little teeth on them, so that's decent. Isofix in our 2 seats. The bar's exposed between the parts of the seat. Not the perfect solution, but as long as you don't rip the leather, it's pretty good. Massive door bins, and they're felt lined as well. You've got really good pockets here. They feel really premium as well. Windows don't go all the way down though, so remember that. You've also got your ambient lighting bar going all the way back here, so the kids are going to get to enjoy that too. But the really cool thing about this, other than this massive pan roof going all the way back, is this rear touchscreen that you've got, which is going to be a bit gimmicky eventually, but initially the kids are going to think it's the best thing ever because you've got the toy box there, you can watch TV on it, faff about your seats, etc. It's really great, but I think you're going to get a sore neck after a while looking down at that. Interestingly as well, you can actually electrically recline the seats back and forth from the side too, so that's really cool. Oh, this is just incredible back here, and yeah, 3 people back here for long journeys will be great. So let's get down to business, and let's start with a wee cheeky door close to see what the quality's like. Pretty good, not Audi levels, but that's definitely the benchmark for me. But that's a pretty good door close, feels really quite a heavy door, but that thudded quite nicely, so the quality side of things is off to a good start. I really like this grey fabricy bit across the dash. It looks a lot less tacky and cheap than the wood trim that's in my Model 3. I mean, you can get aftermarket stuff to cover that up, but that looks a lot nicer. And yeah, everything just feels really solid, you know. I didn't find it a problem in my car or the original Model Y I drove, but it feels just a little bit more polished in every way, and that door close definitely is an example. So, as a Tesla owner, and knowing that they're all fairly similar inside, particularly the Model Y and the Model 3, there isn't a huge amount of obvious changes in here compared to the exterior. This ambient light bar is definitely one of the key things you notice, and these seats, which are definitely technically better in a little few ways. But otherwise, it's all pretty much as Tesla was. You know, you've got absolutely obscene amounts of storage. I mean, I could chuck this bottle right in there and it goes all the way in, and yeah, you've got nice little bits on your cup holders now, so that's definitely a really good improvement they made, because I really couldn't stand the old cup holders that didn't have any teeth on them. Just masses of room in every area, the glove box, everything. The doors are huge, felt lined as well. But the main changes are around the steering wheel functionality, and you've now got slightly better button usage on the steering wheel. And I won't go through all the buttons because you can pretty much figure out what they're all for, but I do love being able to shortcut to your cameras. And yeah, you could do your wipers and your lights as well, but they've removed a stock, and the stock being the gear stick essentially. So that and the autopilot, they are now not on a stock, whereas you've got an indicator still just for indicating. But yeah, I think it all works pretty well. This infotainment though looks ever so slightly different to the one before, but I think it's mostly because the car picture is slightly different and it's got the light bar, which looks so cool. But in terms of the actual functionality, it's pretty much the same. So yeah, I'm not really seeing much to tell you about here. It's an incredible system. I absolutely love it in my car, and it will continue to be incredible. If you can get used to this swipey gear change thing, then that's the main thing I think that's going to be like, wow, that's a bit of a shocker. But other than that, if you're going to buy a Tesla, you have to accept that very, very few functions actually are done through a physical button. It's almost all through this touchscreen. So get on board with it and definitely have a decent test drive before you buy one to make sure you're happy with it. But here's the thing, you can pick up the pre-facelift version of this car for a lot less money now, a lot. And ones that have still got a bit of warranty on them, which I think is a really good way to buy it, because at least then you can maybe get it inspected whilst it's under warranty, which I didn't do, and then find out if there's anything that needs to get fixed and replaced before it's out of warranty. But the difference in price between this one, this is 44 grand new, 2,600 extra for the Quicksilver paint, which I do think is a great choice. But other than that, that's all the costs, and a delivery fee, which was like nearly £1,000. But yeah, you can pick up a used pre-facelift for a fraction of this price. And so you then have to start going, what fundamentally extra am I getting for my money? And obviously, if you're getting something through your work or something, like a salary sacrifice scheme or a business lease, which this is, that's a different kettle of fish. But when you look at the actual list price of the cars, there is a really big difference between the Juniper and the pre-facelift. So for me as a Model 3 owner, which is still giving me the same perspective on things that have changed, because a lot of the things are similar between the Model Y and the Model 3. They just are. This ambient light bar, massive win. I think that's going to look amazing at night. And the styling, and then the suspension being a bit softer, more compliant, and the better acoustics. That's it. They're the main things. They're the main reasons why this is a better car. But whether it's better enough for those things to spend that amount extra money potentially, that's up to you. And let's just be clear, this car has a lot of rivals, some of which would be like the Skoda Enyaq, the Volkswagen ID4, the BMW iX3, Mercedes EQB, it could go on. And what you really need to be sure of is when you compare the list prices, if you then want to have the toys that the Tesla's got, well, to get those toys in those other cars, what packs do you need to add on to basically compare apples with apples? Because that's where you might find that the prices start to look a little bit in favor of the Tesla. So really important to do that, but there's so many rivals for this thing out there. For me though, it's still a very unique car and there's just nothing quite like it. But another compelling case for Tesla, other than obviously the use of the supercharger network, is just the charging speeds and the charging in general. Let me just read some of this to you. So this has got a 64 kilowatt hour battery, usable 60.5. So it's not a huge battery, but the range obviously is very good at 311 miles official. But you can do on AC charging, 11 kilowatts, 8 hours, 15 minutes to 100%. But you could do to 80% on a 250 kilowatt DC charger in 27 minutes. That is really quick. So really, it just makes the things about range anxiety and all that just fritter away, because as long as you can plan your charges in, this thing, go and grab a cup of tea, have a pee, get back in the car, you're good to go again. It is fantastic from a charging perspective, and no other electric brand touches it. But would I go for the standard rear wheel drive? Probably not, mainly because I just like all-wheel drive. I like the extra grip I get from it and just be able to go off the line quickly, not worry about wheel slip. But I also think that the performance, I'm so used to having a car that's a bit quicker that I'm just like, I don't know if I could go back. But as a first Tesla owner, I think if I was starting here, I would be more than happy with the performance and the range you can get with this. Do you really need the extra range from the long range or the dual motor long range? I don't really think so, to be honest. So if that's your reason to go for one of them and spend extra money, you've really got to be wondering, how far do you need to go between charges for that to really matter? Because it might be an expense you just don't need to worry about. So my final thoughts are that if you don't need a car with an even bigger boot or different shaped boot, and you don't need a bit more ground clearance because you do a lot of off-roading or whatever, then I'm struggling to see a car that offers better value as an electric family car than this. It's absolutely incredible, and you should definitely take a look at it and get a test drive of it if you're thinking about buying a big electric family car. So those are my thoughts, guys. I would love to know yours, so please do leave me a comment below. If I've got anything wrong, please do let me know. I'm always humbled to hear that. And if you enjoyed the video, please do give it a like. Don't forget to subscribe as well. As I say, really helps the channel a lot and costs you nothing, so I really appreciate that. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.